I don't know that people realize this. We just had one of the biggest legal victories in the last 2 decades on this issue. So we just had this. And not to get into too much of the legal weeds, but the reality is the president can designate a monument.
Absolutely.
And under the law, he can basically say, okay, this is something of historic or scientific importance, and he can draw a little line around that and protect that area. Well, what the presidents have done, like Obama and Clinton, they both designated these monuments that were massive. So think of it like the power says, look, this is a priceless painting. We empower you as a president to have a frame around the painting. And instead the president says, okay, and I'm also going to draw a fence around the neighborhood where the museum is located.
Yeah, right.
Like nobody would go, well, you can't do that.
Right.
So the most recent victory we had in the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals just this last week was the court saying, no. The president's power is not unlimited. There needs to be some check on that power.
Americans are capable of achieving extraordinary things when they have the freedom and opportunity to do so. This is American Potential.
Hey everyone, welcome to the American Potential Podcast. I'm your host, David Fromm. One of the things that makes America so unique is that you can travel from one end of the country to the other, and every region has its own story, its own landscape, and really its own way of life. While we get to enjoy the country, did you know that in many of the Western states, more than half of the land is owned or managed by the federal government? That means state and local officials really have limited authority over the land. But some of those states are pushing back, arguing they should have a bigger role in deciding how those lands are managed and used. Today, we're taking a closer look at the debate. And my colleague, Heather Andrews, was able to sit down with Utah's Attorney General, Derek Brown, at Americans for Prosperity's Let Freedom Ring concert to talk about this and what the state is doing. Heather.
Thanks, David. We're coming to you live from Salt Lake City again at the Let Freedom Ring celebration of America's 250th. And I'm sitting down with someone who's taken on one of the biggest fights in the West. Here in Utah, the federal government owns over 70% of the state. So think about that. 7 out of 10 acres in the state of Utah are controlled from Washington, D.C. My guest decided that that's probably a little too much and took the fight all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. He's a constitutional lawyer. He's clerked for federal appeals judge and worked on Capitol Hill for three U.S. senators.
Yeah, actually, that's true, 3.
And now he's Utah's Attorney General, elected in 2024. He's also someone I call a friend. Derek Brown, welcome to American Potential. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Heather. I appreciate that. Good to be here.
Yes, you're also have all the musical and acting talent in your family.
Well, music's the backup in case the law thing doesn't work out.
That's a great question. So before we actually get into the land fight, I want to talk to you about that. So I want, you've made your kind of whole career based around the Constitution. So what first pulled you towards constitutional law?
Well, it is, first of all, it's fascinating. I love it. But I'll tell you, the thing that I love about the Constitution is it is the structure around which everything is based in our country. A lot of people, when you say, what makes the country so great, they'll say, well, it's the Bill of Rights or whatever. But every country, even North Korea has a Bill of Rights.
Right.
We have a structure that protects our rights, and that's the Constitution. And so everything for me flows from that Constitution.
Absolutely. That's great. And then, so tell me, a lot of people don't even know, you got the title Attorney General.
Yeah.
What does that mean? What does your job look like? What is an Attorney General?
I get asked that by lawyers literally all the time. They'll be like, wait, okay. And they'll of course look left and look right to make sure nobody's watching. And they're like, hey, what does an AG actually do? Well, the easy way to look at it is we are the state's law firm. So anytime the state is involved in litigation at all, it is with my office. My office defends, my office files lawsuits. We have about 320 lawyers, about 600 people total. So it really is the state's largest law firm. So when we're sued by the federal government, or when we sue the federal government, or private sector company sues or anyone involves the state in any litigation, that's my job. So there's a lot of political things we do. We work with the administration right now, which it's great to have an administration that's willing to work with us.
Right.
But that's any of that interplay on the law. That's my office, and I love it. It is so much fun.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so you could basically have done anything. You could have, you decided to run for attorney general here in Utah. So why was that? Like, what is the itch you need to scratch here? Why attorney general?
But part of it is it's an opportunity to make a difference and really, one of the things I care about is federalism. The structures I mentioned of the Constitution is critical. The 10th Amendment basically says, and people don't realize this, but it's a limited Constitution, right? We call it enumerated powers, meaning if it's in the Constitution, the federal government can do it. Anything else, really, it's the states. And so that's why you mentioned the lands issues with the, 2/3 of our state owned by the federal government. I think that's, well, here's a funny side note. I did a presentation to a group of attorneys general across the country on this issue. And so these are the AGs from, states from all the way from the West Coast to the East Coast. And I mentioned, 2/3 of our state is owned by the federal government. And afterwards, I had an AG that came up to me from an East Coast state. And he said, what's funny? He goes, I want to talk to you about that. It sounds like you actually said 2/3 of your state. How much is it really? And I looked at him and I said, 2/3, just like I said.
Wow.
He couldn't believe it. Most people do not understand what that means, but...
No, and that's what I was going to say. Like, that was going to be my next question is, like, I think people get the idea that means, like, maybe a national park or two. But when you put it, as 2/3, or when you actually look at the map and it shows, like, how the majority of the state or over the majority of the state is owned by the federal government, it's insane.
Well, and you get counties in Utah, like my father-in-law lives in Garfield County, Panguitch, so we go down there all the time. That's where we're going for the 4th. We love being down there.
Yeah.
Garfield County is roughly 93% federal lands. So what that means is the most powerful person in those counties in Utah, it's not the commissioners or the elected officials, it's whoever gets appointed to head the Bureau of Land Management in that area.
And so tell us, what is the problem with that then? Like, why is it so important and critical that it's managed by, by us in the state, or having state control versus federal control? Why is that so important?
I think this is the concept I believe in, and this is the federalism, the most core concept in federalism is that the person closest to the problem should be the one empowered to solve it. And so when you have millions of acres of land that get basically taken away from Utah and given to federal bureaucrats, look, they may do their best, but the bureaucrats in D.C. aren't going to do as well as the commissioners in Garfield County when it comes to protecting land. They know, for instance, what it takes to do controlled burns and manage the forest land in such a way that fires don't ravage the state, which is exactly the problem we're seeing right now in Utah.
Absolutely.
And so for me, it's really an issue of the person closest to it should have control. And that's why, we've got a big lawsuit right now on federal lands involving monuments. And this has been going on for a long time because we've had presidents that have declared monuments and effectively taken millions of acres right out of the middle of Utah. The most recent monument was basically the size of Delaware.
Right.
And it was just scooped up, taken away from Utah, right in the middle.
And how does that affect the communities there? How does it affect, paint that picture? Because I don't think people back east, like you said, even understand what that means and what that looks like.
They don't get it.
Right.
Well, and here's the thing is, under our structure of the Constitution, the president has the authority to do that, but the president doesn't have the authority to allocate resources, appropriations, like money.
Right.
So for the president to say, okay, I'm going to take, roughly 2.1 million acres, I'm going to call it Bears Ears, I'm going to scoop it out of the state of Utah. Okay, now that requires a lot of management, a lot. He doesn't have the purse strings to do that. That's another branch. So he did that, and now the tourism went up like crazy, but those counties are still responsible for things like, somebody gets lost in one of those monuments hiking.
Right.
Who does search and rescue in the Grand Staircase Escalon monument? Garfield County. Who pays for it? Garfield County. So that's part of the problem is in any area of government, the person closest to the elected official closest to the problem should be the one really that I think solves it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or empowered to solve it.
Right, absolutely. Well, okay, so where does the fight stand today with the courts? Like, how is the battle going? Do you feel like we're winning this fight? Do you feel like we're
making
in
progress?
Process? Okay, well,
no, we are absolutely. Look, we just
good.
had this last week. Like, I don't know that people realize this. We just had one of the biggest legal victories in the last 2 decades on this issue.
Yeah.
So no, we just had this. And not to get into too much of the legal weeds, but the reality is the president can designate a monument.
Absolutely.
And under the law, he can basically say, okay, this is something of historic or scientific importance, and he can draw a little line around that and protect that area. Well, what the presidents have done, like Obama and Clinton, they both designated these monuments that were massive. So think of it like the power says, look, this is a priceless painting. We empower you as a president to have a frame around the painting. And instead the president says, okay, and I'm also going to draw a fence around the neighborhood where the museum is located.
Yeah, right.
Like nobody would go, well, you can't do that.
Right.
Well, what's happened is presidents have done that. Legally, we've challenged it. And the courts, until now, here in Utah have said, you can't challenge it. The president has unlimited power. Well, presidents shouldn't have unlimited power. So the most recent victory we had in the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals just this last week was the court saying, no. The president's power is not unlimited. There needs to be some check on that power, which is what we've argued all along. So that's where we are. It's a step in the right direction. It's not like a final victory, obviously, but it is a legal victory that says, all right, now we can talk about, what should the boundaries of these monuments in Utah be?
Absolutely.
And that's what we've been trying to argue all along. Let's talk about whether the boundaries are the right boundaries. So anyway, that's a long answer, but this is really what we're looking at. This is such a huge issue.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is. And it affects so many people in the state of Utah.
Well, and we have in addition to that lawsuit, we probably have, and no one really knows this, but we've got probably another 50 lawsuits dealing with the roads in southern Utah, which are, and it's the same kind of thing as who should be in charge of maintaining these roads and who gets the power to say what happens and control them. And
Absolutely.
so those fights have been going on for like 2 decades.
Long time. Well, if they're for the person listening that wants to help or wants to, get involved, what would you say? Is there a way that they can do that? Is there anything that we can do to help you with this?
The reality is we have different groups in Utah, but we have a lot of elected officials who are very involved in. My job is to do the legal fight.
Absolutely.
But part of it is to be aware that this is going on because this is an ongoing battle, and it really is for every stage. I would say just be aware of the issues, be educated on what it looks like, and why federalism ultimately matters. Because this very fight that we're having in lands, we're also having and have had in every other area of the law. So I have hundreds of lawsuits, and so many of them, it's the same concept, but
comes back to states' rights issues versus the federal government.
Right. And so should we have that authority on things like the waters in the state of Utah or our air, the Clean Air Act, or businesses with trade and commerce?
Right.
This
it just goes on.
This issue is the same thing writ large everywhere. You're right. Everywhere. It goes on and on.
Yes. Well, thank you for all the work you're doing. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for what you guys do.
Being with us this evening. Really appreciate that and taking time.
Happy to.
That was
Thanks,
a wonderful
Heather.
speech that you gave for the event. Really appreciate the history lesson. That was wonderful.
Saturday's a big day.
Yes.
250 years.
Yes, it is.
It's a big milestone.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you, Derek Brown.
You bet. Thank you. Good to be here.
All right. And if you enjoyed this episode and want to stay in the fight, then do us a favor, like and subscribe. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And always remember, liberty and freedom are easy to take for granted. Don't take them for granted. Get out there and defend them. Thank you so much, and see you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to American Potential. You may listen to more stories from Americans working every day to expand freedom and opportunity in their communities by visiting AmericanPotential.com.